Hello guys, today I have the pleasure and the honor to talk to one of the most known and respected coaches and trainer of coaching and NLP of the world, Joseph O'Connor. Hello Joseph.
Hi Andre, thanks, good to be with you all.
Thanks for being here talking to this national online convention of NLP, Kona PNL. Thank you very much.
Good, my pleasure.
Joseph, I'd like to start to hearing from you about your background. How did you move from a musician to NLP expert and to a world reference in coaching?
Well, it's a long story, but let me give you the highlights. Originally I did a degree in anthropology at University College in London. So that's kind of got me interested in how people think, how people talk, language in different cultures. Then I didn't follow that up at all. As you say, I was a professional musician. I was a classical guitarist. I played the classical guitar in concert. I taught, and there was always two questions that I was interested in as a guitarist and as a teacher. The first was how people learn, because of course I can teach people, but if I teach them the way that works for me, it probably won't work for them. So I need to be able to teach the way that people learn. So I need to find out how people learn. So that's that was the first question. And the second question was, how can people give their best? Because I was very aware that I had many good players who would come to me, concert players, and they would play very well when they were alone, and they would play reasonably well when they were with me, but they didn't necessarily play well when they were in the concert, and that's what counts. That's the only time that counts. So what is it about those kinds of situations that take away people's skill? Because I would listen to my students playing in the studio alone, and they would play beautifully. I would enter the room, I would be the teacher, they would immediately play less. Their competence didn't change. Something had changed inside their head, some belief, some idea that affected their emotions, and they didn't play so well. So that was the second question. How can we help people be the best they can be? And this is what brought me into NLP originally. I wrote the first book outside United States to be published on NLP, I believe, and also the first, and maybe even still the only book on music and NLP, which is called Not Pulling Strings. And then that got me interested, and then, as you know, I wrote Introducing NLP, and kind of followed on from there. I found that I like books. I like to read and I like to write.
Yeah, I'd like to acknowledge you for being the first influence in my life on the field of NLP, because the first book I ever read on NLP was this one.
Yes.
Introduction to NLP.
That's the one.
Thank you. And since we're talking about NLP and coaching, and the main question of both of them are, how can I do better? And that's what brought you to study these areas. So I'd like to talk a little bit about is it the inner game that Timothy Galway talk in his book Inner Game of Tennis that started the coaching, isn't it? And I'd like to talk a little bit about the inner game that reflects on the outer game, on the results we have.
Sure. Well, inner game is a good metaphor. Because with anything, whether it's tennis or any sport or music or drama or management or sales or being an executive, you can look at it as a game. In other words, it has rules. You have to do things, and you have to do things well. Now, what gets in the way of that? Of course, there are external problems and difficulties in the environment, but most of the time what gets in the way is the things that go on in our heads, our limiting ideas, our limiting beliefs. And the thing about the inner opponent, I like to think of it as the inner opponent, the kind of metaphor, is the inner opponent knows all your weaknesses. They know you exactly. They know exactly what to whisper into your inner ear, what internal dialogue to tell you, to put you off on those crucial times. So it's a good metaphor. I think that what's interesting about Timothy Galway is, and his book, is it certainly helped to move coaching forward. And if you read it, there are very similar ideas in there to NLP, and then started more or less the same time. Timothy Galway wrote in 1975, NLP was starting in 74, 75. If you read Tim Galway's book, there's an almost perfect rendition of the new behavior generator in that, as part of a way to prepare yourself and visualize. So there was a lot of things coming together around that time in the mid-70s with regard to how can we use our brains in the best way in order to get the best from ourselves in difficult situations.
Great. So coaching is well, I think you could explain more, because I usually see a lot of people doing mistakes about coaching. Anyone now is a coach. Anyone with a special ability is a coach. Self-dominates a coach. So what is coaching, and what does the coach do?
Well, we have an 8-day international certification just to answer that question. I should say that Lambent do Brazil, which is the company that my wife Andrea and I started in Sampaio in 2001, we gave the first international certifications in coaching, and Lambent is still active. In fact, Andrea will be doing a coaching training this March and again in October. So this is a big question and an important question. And to have an international body and credibility behind the answer to that question, I think is very important. So there are many definitions of coaching. Perhaps the simplest is to be the best you can be, to help others to be the best they can be. And of course, you as a coach need to be a model for that. So you also work on yourself. And we do this as coaches through an exploration of goals, of values, of what's important, and of what we might call in NLP beliefs, but which I prefer to call assumptions or habits of thinking, because a habit is something that you do without thinking. So a habit of thinking is the thinking that you do without thinking. In other words, it's your automatic way of thinking, the automatic kind of ideas that we bring into a situation. And unless we have some reflection and some self-awareness, which is what coaching needs to bring, this is what will dominate our thinking, this is what will dominate our action, and therefore we'll get the same results as always. So those are the three kind of pillars of coaching, and then to go with that, there's three questions. And of course, the NLP being the study of the structure of subjective experience, it has a lot to offer coaching, because the three questions in coaching are, well, first of all, where are you now? So this is about your present state, but a little bit more than that, a self-awareness, a being in the present that makes you aware of who you are and how you think and what you bring to the situation. Then the next question is desired state. Well, where do you want to be? Different, usually. And the third question is, what stops you? What stops you moving from one to the other? Because, of course, if you knew what you wanted, if you knew where you were, there's nothing stopping you. You just go. You don't need a coach. You don't need anybody to help you particularly. But there are obstacles. And the obstacles, as we find it in coaching, are nearly always the way that the client thinks about the problem. So the way that they structure the problem in their own mind, the way that they think about it, creates a particular way of approaching that problem, and it creates its own difficulties. And what a coach does is, by asking questions, because coaches, that's what coaches do, they are professional askers of the very best question that they can find at any one particular time, to help the client see and to change the client's perspective and orientation on the issue. And we talk a lot about problem solving, but there's certainly, in English this works, we can talk about problem dissolving. In other words, the problem kind of melts away. Problem resolving. Problem kind of goes into its elements. Problem absolving. It's not your problem. Oh, I thought it was. It's not after all. Wow, that's great. So I don't even have to solve it. It's not mine. So there are many ways, and that maybe is three metaphors of ways of thinking about a problem. If you think you've got to solve it, then this may not be the best way to approach it. So this is what a coach does. A coach helps you to look at the present, to be in the present, to help find your best future for what you want, and then to help you to move between the two, and by good questions to open new perspectives and new choices for the client.
Oh, and I love the way you expose the beliefs. I never heard about this habitual thinking. It's new for me. And how can I change this? Work with. I know that beliefs and values are what's the difference on how we do and why we do and what we do. How we can work with these beliefs and habitual thinking and values?
Yeah, that's the key question. So before you can work with anything, you have to know what you're working with. Before you can move to a desired state, you need to know your present state. Before you can work with habitual thinking, you have to know your habitual thinking. That's not so easy because it's the thinking we do without thinking. This is why you need a coach to kind of hold up a mirror almost and say, do you know what you just said? And you go, no. you said this, and then clients will go, did I really say that? Because they're getting back their thinking in a new way, a new perspective, which is what coaches do. So that's the first step. You need to be able to shine a light on your own habitual thinking. You need to take a step up from that to be able to see what's going on. So that's the first step. Now, once you've done that, you have a choice. You have a moment of choice that opens up. You can't change anything you don't know. So once you know it, you have a choice. Now, I say, and this may sound a bit heretical in NLP circles, that changing beliefs are easy. We do it all the time. We just don't notice. Our beliefs change all the time in response to events that happen to us, in response to growing up. You, maybe, I certainly did, most people did, believe in Papa Noel, Father Christmas, right? We don't anymore.
Yes.
Yeah, because we have new information. There are many things. We do an exercise in the coaching training where you look at some of the beliefs you had in the past and you notice what it was that changed them, and then you notice what you would like to believe. So the second aspect is a particular perspective on beliefs, which is not about truth or not. It's about your particular best guess and your best model of the world, where you are at that particular moment. Bearing in mind, as you look back on your timeline, you will see that you didn't believe some of these things in the past, and that you did believe some things you don't believe now. And if you look forward to the future, there will be things that you don't believe in the future that maybe you believe now. In other words, beliefs it's a natural process of changing beliefs. If you know that, what works for you as a natural process, this will allow you to, first of all, be more critical about how you think, and secondly, be able to look at a situation from the point of view of what you believe about it, or your habits of thinking about it. And this is the crucial step in terms of being able to solve or dissolve problems. So, first of all, be aware. Secondly, be aware that it's natural that our ideas change. And thirdly, create the circumstances for yourself, with the help of a coach, that will allow you to change those ideas, those habits, while honouring the positive intention of what you believe now, what your ideas are now. Because, we're not stupid. Human beings aren't stupid. We have ideas that help us to adapt and to cope and to deal with the situations that we have at the moment. And in the past, we've had other beliefs, but we weren't stupid then. We were not stupid. We had other beliefs. We have some people, I think Robert Dilts says, we have a museum of old beliefs. I think of a wardrobe of old beliefs. It's a bit like clothes. You look in your wardrobe and you look at some of your clothes and you think, good heavens, did I really ever wear that? That was amazing. I hope there are no pictures, right? I hope it's not on Facebook. But yet you bought that, and you probably did wear it, and you thought it was cool. I know I did. But now it's not. But that's okay. You're going to, maybe you look back in 10 years' time on your wardrobe now and you think, good grief, did I really wear that? So we evolve. And we talk about belief change, but if we look carefully at the words, the language, perhaps we should talk more about belief evolution. Because evolution is a natural process, and we know how evolution works in nature. It's small changes that accumulate until the end animal, over time, is completely different from the beginning animal. Doesn't look like any connection between the small birds that hop around in the garden and the dinosaurs that you see on the film Jurassic Park. But originally there was. So by small critical changes, you can get to a very different place to where you are now. And that's also one of the keys of coaching, of course. You take small action steps. Small steps, small steps, small steps. If you keep taking small steps, if you persist, and those small steps are good ones, they're leveraged, you will end up in a very different place from where you are now, hopefully where you want to be.
And about these small steps is what Milton Erickson taught us, that the little steps, every day we do a little step, and every time it grows. And you talked about the role of coaching, holding a mirror for us to really see us and shine the black spot, the dark spots. And is it possible, knowing that, to do a self-coach?
It's self-coaching is better than no coaching, and self-coaching, it's useful. Certainly, and you can get some way, but there's something about having another person, getting that outside view, because we don't know what we don't know. If I give a physical metaphor, some years ago, I did what's called the Alexander technique, which is about posture and using your body well. As a guitarist, I wanted to do that as best I could. And the first thing that my teacher did was to stand me up and say, stand up straight. I said, okay, it's easy. So I stood up straight, and she said, are you sure that you're standing up completely straight? And I go, yes. And then she took a full-length mirror, and she put the full-length mirror in front of me, and she said, look in the mirror, are you standing straight? And I looked in the mirror. It wasn't a trick mirror. It was a perfectly reasonable mirror. And I could see that I was leaning slightly to my right. But that felt, to me, kinesthetically correct, because I had been so used to it, and what we continue to do as a habit feels right. So then she said, okay, well, why don't you use the feedback from the mirror to stand up straight? So then I did that, and I stood up straight according to the mirror, and I felt I was falling over to the left because I wasn't used to it. So this is the interesting thing about beliefs and habits of thinking, habits of the body. They feel right because you're used to them, and it needs some external mirror of some kind to show you. You know, she didn't say, you're not standing straight. I go, I am. I know I am. She goes, no, you're not. I go, yes, I am. So then that's an argument. That doesn't work. So feedback. Okay, look in the mirror. Are you standing straight? Then I look in the mirror and I see, oh, I'm not. So now you stand straight. Okay, I did. So then I get all the learning. So this is I like this story because it's a good metaphor for coaching. And it was also very striking for me to see outside feedback for something that felt so different.
Great, great. And about NLP and coaching, how does NLP fit in the coaching process? How can NLP help a coach?
Well, NLP has a good set of tools. Of course, as a coach, we deal with clients' habits of thinking, their values, their goals, and this is used in NLP certainly, how people think about it. Coaching and NLP both sprung from the same roots of humanistic psychology, which is about what's it like to be human? You know, what's it like to actually be inside? What are these human minds, rather than kind of looking at it from the outside and making all sorts of models about what it looks like from the outside? What's it like from the inside? So this is very useful. So certainly the way that we think about goals, the importance of goals, how to structure goals, values, what's important about values, because they provide the power, the fuel to move between one goal and another, because without values, you know, why bother? There are 10 million different things that I could do with my day here. How do I decide? How can I possibly decide what to do out of all these goals? Logic won't get me anywhere. They're all equally good logically. So it's my values. It's what's important to me that drives me to action, and those values connect with my emotion, and the emotions drive me to action. So that's what provides the power. And it's very interesting that people whose emotional parts of the brain that deal with emotions, when they're damaged, these people can't make decisions. They can argue and logic and intellect, and that's no problem. But when it comes to actually choosing, shall I have, you know, steak for dinner or shall I have fish? It's like, I don't know. They're both the same. So values, very important, and linking with emotions. And as we were talking about beliefs, the other thing, of course, is multiple perspectives. We have good models of multiple perspectives in NLP, and the whole linguistic ideas around questions. How do you ask questions? Transderivational search. How can you get a question that will really allow someone to make a good transderivational search? What sort of presuppositions are built into your questions? What sort of presuppositions are built into the answers, so that you can look on the language, your own language and the client's language, in a way that allows you to clear out the difficulties and clean the mirror, as it were. You know, the mirror needs to be clean for you and for the client. Okay.
So a coach may use the meta model and the Milton model in the process.
I don't use the meta model or the Milton model. Really? I don't use them in coaching. I'm aware of them, of course. The reason I don't use the meta model is because the meta model, for me, tends to be rather prescriptive. You know, there are 12 or 13 of these, and there are certain challenges. And while the meta model is useful to know, I think it's a bit like once you know it, then it's kind of, you put it aside and you use the intuitions of the gaps in the language of the other person. So I don't use metamodal challenges, or very rarely, because as we know, metamodal, if you're not careful, can lose rapport quite rapidly. So good to know, good to analyze language, good to know the metamodel, but I think once you know the metamodel, I think it's good to put it aside and clear the mind and just look and listen to your client from the point of view of what are they saying, what's coming out of them, and what do they need to know, and what gaps are there for me. The Milton model, again, I don't use it specifically because Milton model, of course, is designed or came about modeling sort of how you put people in trance, and you don't put people in trance in coaching. That being said, of course, natural language, as we're talking and as I talk to you, uses a lot of metamodel and Milton model patterns. You know, I say things to you about patterns, and you know, this is very unspecified, but you know about it. Now, I wouldn't try to put you into a trance with regard to what we're talking about, and I think with regard to coaching clients, you don't put them in a trance either. You certainly help them with questions. They will make transderivational searches, but trance for me is not part of the coaching. I think it's trance is much more specific, and at the same time, I also think, as John and Richard once argued between them, there's no such thing as trance, and everyone's in trance. In other words, there's states of consciousness, and you go all the way from sleep all the way to, you know, super left brain attention out, and we constantly move along this, you know, in a natural way, in response to what people say and in response to how we talk to ourselves. So again, I feel that is quite naturalistic.
And which tools of NLP you use most on coaching?
I don't use NLP tools as such. I would certainly, in terms of NLP concepts, I would use first, second, third position. There are first position in terms of what you think, second in terms of what the other person thinks. I think that perspective idea is very useful. It's difficult for me to say what tools I would use because I don't think about it that way. I don't think about I'm going to use this tool. I try to listen to the client, the other person, and take in what they're thinking and how they're thinking, and then try to, I don't know, make them think more in a way that is going to help them to find out what they want, and in a way to help them to get towards it. So, you know, I don't use new behavior generators or six-step reframing or any of those kinds of tools like that. I use more like concepts in a more fluid way. Okay,
great. So and I would like to use this moment to say about this book, Coaching with NLP, from Andrea Lages and Joseph O'Connor. It's a great book. I read it, and great book. I recommend for everybody who's watching this. And just to finish, I'd like to ask a question. Imagine if some aliens, for any reason, some aliens came to this planet and take you and abducted you. But before leaving, they give you the chance to leave a message to mankind. What would you say?
I have no idea. Hey guys, there really are aliens. See you later. I really don't know. That's too difficult a question.
So for the beloved ones, some
Oh, keep loving.
great,
Love is the answer. Love is the question. Love is the answer. Love is the basis. It's
great,
everywhere. You'll see it everywhere if you look. Look everywhere.
great, great. Thank you,
Okay.
Joseph.
Thank you, Andre.
That was great talking to you. Thank you very much.
Okay, you're very welcome.